Good evening, everybody. Tonight is oh my God, it's not Saturday night. It's Sunday night. Steve, how terrible would it be if we were here on Saturday night? It is Sunday night, February 26th. You are watching or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. I'm Bill Woodcock,
And I'm Steve Hunt. Hope everybody's had a great weekend.
and we are both coming to you live, well, on delay, from lovely Howard County, Maryland. Steve, Howard County is in the middle of Maryland, which is not also known as America in miniature. Yet the woman of letters and noted scholar, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, has put out a position. I can't really say if I call it a position paper, maybe a position napkin or Kleenex, suggesting that we have a quote unquote national divorce between blue states and red states. Steve, my question to you is, in the case of a national divorce, who are the kids, who gets them, and what the custody arrangements look like?
Oh, so much to unpack there. And you're right. You can't call it a paper or a thesis or anything like that. That would be giving way too much credit to the gentle lady from Northwest Georgia. And maybe that's giving her too much credit as well. The fact of the matter is, she needs to start in her own state because it's not exactly like Georgia is, I don't know, Alabama or Mississippi. I mean, does everybody in Georgia want to go red state? Especially those people in, near the many military installations and other airports and things that are, oh, by the way, funded and run by the federal government, which, if you're talking about a divorce, you got to give those things up too. It's like you want to divorce the rich spouse, you got to get out of the house. So, this is why, Bill, quite frankly, for those who say social media is evil, this is one of the things that bolsters that argument because she can just spit out whatever the hell she wants to in 288 characters or less and just let it marinate. And I know in our award show, we talked about Kevin McCarthy. I promise I will make no references to his nether regions. We
We
went
got
there,
letters. We
but
didn't get emails or messages or comments. We got actual letters.
well, you know what? I think I was kind of correct there because guess who hasn't had a word to say about Marjorie Taylor Greene's whatever the hell you want to call it? One Kevin McCarthy.
Oh no, that's not true. He said something this morning on State of the Union with Abby Phillip. There was something recorded from Fox News from that turkey, and he said that she's like one of those gals in high school who you just hang out with, and they're cool, and they will have your back, and they will protect you no matter what.
It would have been better if he said nothing.
It would have been better. She would have said she was like, I don't know. You know what? I'm not
It would
even
have been
going
better
to
if he would have
say.
said. It would have been better if he would have denounced it, but he doesn't have the guts to do that. So wow.
Yeah, see, if I say anything about high school, I'm going to get letters from people I knew in high school, and I don't need any more letters. We got enough letters, and we got enough topics today. We have topics 3. We will get back to the ever-loving shit show known as the National Republicans later in our podcast. But first, Steve, I know it's been said before many times, many ways, but topic 1, 99 Chinese spy balloons go by. Steve,
thank you, Jason.
I have lost track on how many Chinese spy balloons have been shot down by U.S. forces over North America. I believe it is at least 4. There seems to have been, and I mean, we're a little behind the curve on this topic, but I was chagrined last week when the presidential press secretary actually had to state that there is no suspicion of alien or other extraterrestrial activity. And I'm not sure what other extraterrestrial activity would be other than alien. Perhaps dolphins or octopi have grown, they are intelligent. They have grown such technology that they could float spy balloons. I don't know. But the spy balloons are not alien. They're not extraterrestrial, thank God. And nor are they, and they apparently come from China. That's why they're Chinese spy balloons. Nor do they pose a imminent threat, apparently, but they are concerning. I don't know how concerning balloons can be. I mean, it's obviously, I'm not going to say obviously because I'm not going to speculate. Steve, are we really getting, are we getting too spun up about spy balloons?
Yes, we are, because if anybody thinks that this is the primary means by which another country is spying on us and or we're spying on another country, let me introduce you to a little something called a satellite. So, or spy planes. I mean, come on. If this is the best that the People's Republic of China has, then they are. We don't have to worry about them invading Taiwan because they'll do as well as the Russians are doing in Ukraine if this is the best they've got. I think we're getting way too spun up. The fact of the matter is, the first balloon, was it on purpose coming over the continental U.S.? Did it get off course? I don't know what it was. I don't care what it was, but it ended up where it ended up. As we mentioned, I believe before, I think the administration handled it perfectly. This thing was the size of 3 buses. So yeah, let's shoot it down over a major city and see how much of it the city gets taken out, and then let people complain about that. The other 3 balloons they don't know what they are. 2 of them apparently were knocked down in such rough terrain that they're not recoverable. I think the third one, they're still going to try to get to it. And as again, people they're going to spin up anyway because they want to. But the other 3 balloons, the biggest threat was that they were low enough that an airplane could hit them. And that's why they got shot down. And that is normal procedure. If something is flying within airspace and could get hit by a jet full of humans, you get rid of it. And that's what happened with the other 3. So yes, I think that, we've made this grand new discovery that balloons float around, and, research balloons and weather balloons. There's all kinds of shit up there. This just in, people. So yeah, Bill, it's out of control. Obviously, the Biden haters, because of our next topic that we're going to get into, they'll take any opportunity to take a shot at a guy who is clearly on a roll. But yeah, you want to talk about the classic example of the nothing burger? Yeah, spy balloons, pretty much it.
I had a feeling you were going to say nothing burger. I really did. And I'm glad that you did. I could not agree more. This is ridiculous. However, there is a cunning point here. And so let me get there. I mean, to your point, there are spy satellites that, if I'm sitting out on my deck, could read the headline of the newspaper that I'm reading. That there's any additional value-added intelligence gained by floating a balloon over a territory or country is just ridiculous. However, the concept of the spy balloon is, I believe, not to collect value-added intelligence, but indeed to do exactly this, to get everybody talking. It is a destabilization tactic by the Chinese. It is the next level of, trying to spin up division, trying to get people mad at each other, trying to make people all sorts scared and get people angry. And it is it is very similar to the election disinformation that gets
Mhm.
put out there by the Russians, the Chinese, and others. It is, I believe, in my opinion, less of a threat than, say, what China does over international waters or in the disputed territory between Taiwan and China. And considering as the People's Republic of China is building islands out in the
Yeah.
South China Sea, which could be the home of future military bases with which to blow Taiwan off the map, the threat level. I mean, to coin the office, the spy balloons are threat level midnight. It's terrible. They're nothing.
Right.
There's much more to be worried about than from Chinese intelligence gathering than spy balloons, and we ought to be reporting on that.
Yeah, and don't forget, Bill, this gives folks on the far right an excuse to post pictures of themselves with guns, as they are now going to shoot down these wicked, evil spy balloons like they're clay pigeons, because, of course, the gun lobby and their friends, any excuse to post a picture with them holding a gun and packing heat. America.
Yeah, yeah. Aren't the balloons like 40,000 feet up though?
Yeah. Exactly.
I don't think Uzi 9mm or the AR-15 is going to shoot that high. I think we'd have to get MTG on like a big array of balloons, like
Mhm.
in the Pixar movie Up, and float her up there to about 39,990 feet,
Yeah.
and then get her to shoot that evil spy balloon down.
Either that or the Jewish space laser. One or the other.
Why? Yeah, dude, where the F were the Jewish space lasers?
I know. I mean, we're supposed to be packing, man. I mean, come on. And by
They
the way,
were
Bill,
supposed to have taken care of us, and obviously they didn't.
uh,
Anyway, on
hey,
to
quick question,
what?
Bill. The way you said Uzi 9mm, was that homage to Arnold Schwarzenegger in the Terminator when he was ordering weapons? Because it
It
sounded like.
was
There you go. I love that. Phase plasma
Uzi
rifle at
9
the 40-watt
millimeter
range.
plasma rifle with laser sighting. Hey, only what you see on the rack, pal.
Yeah.
I
Well
mean,
played.
the gun owner, I mean, it was 40 years ago, that movie, but he was acting all cool like it could be today.
I
Only what you
know.
see on the rack. Like he's like, yeah, I got plasma rifles. No, he doesn't. No one has plasma rifles. What's wrong with you? So anyway, on to item number 2.
Oh.
I'd like to call it, it's a good month to be a dark Brandon. The president has had a nice month of February, starting with the State of the Union address, on which he more or less owned the Republicans' lunch, like made them look like a bunch of fools. Good economic news all during the month, and of course, it's the economy, stupid. But it looks like unemployment is at another record low. The inflation rate is slowing. So light at the end of the tunnel, we hope. And then the last week's impromptu trip to Ukraine to stand alongside President Zelensky on President's Day, and then his successful trip to Poland and reinvigorate the NATO alliance and restate, much to the chagrin of Vladimir Putin and friends, that NATO is here to stay. NATO is a force, and we ain't putting up with any of your crap, Vlad. All also as we're around the 1-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. Steve, do you agree with me that it's a good month to be a dark Brandon?
Oh, hell yeah. And let's just say the only thing missing from his trip to Ukraine was Biden cutting a promo on Putin. Because you want to talk about just a dunk poster in your face maneuver. I mean, he may as well have just did the D-Generation X chop in Vlad's direction with that move. I'm serious. I mean, you want to talk about just looking at somebody and saying, I ain't scared, man. Who,
I
who,
mean,
who,
there was a
who are you?
picture, an official White House picture of Biden and his aviators eating a chocolate ice cream cone, walking out of an ice cream shop in Kiev.
Yeah,
What madness is this? He just
yeah.
doesn't care.
With air raid sirens going off, and and you're right. It's a hell of a month to be dark branded. I mean, let's just very quickly to review this trip. 4 a.m. He gets up, jumps on Air Force One, flies across the pond. Then I think he goes from Germany to Poland. Then he jumps on a train. Not that that's a bad thing because he loves his trains, but 10-hour train ride to Kyiv. Hangs out with Zelensky, and air raid sirens going off. He's walking around the aviators. All he was missing was some like Shaft theme music behind him. He had the whole cool thing going. Jumps back on train, 10 hours back to Poland. Has a bilateral meeting with the his Polish counterparts, president, prime minister, etc. Makes a big old speech. Meets with the Bucharest Nine. Flies back. I mean, I thought he was old. I thought he was Sleepy Joe. I thought, I don't know if this was more of a message to Republicans or to weak-kneed Democrats who keep saying, well, we like him, but he's so old. I mean, look, I got tired just reading off what he did a minute ago.
You know,
Right?
I'm glad you said all of this because I'm developing a thought process about Joe Biden. And as long as, God forbid, and I mean, any of us could have a debilitating attack, right?
Sure.
A heart attack, a stroke, or whatever. But God forbid anything like that happening to the president. We do have now another minority president, Steve. I mean, when you think about it, we now have the first true senior citizen, you could even say elder president.
Yeah.
And what happened when we had the last minority president in office? That man had to make himself 3 times as better as anybody else so that he can maintain the respect of the nation and not be a footnote, not be somebody who, okay, well, there will never be another Obama for 30 years because when we elected a black president, he wasn't any good. Now we have an elder president. Yes, Ronald Reagan was 77 when he stepped down in his second term, and for about 18 seconds, his age was an issue in the 84 election, but he ran on his vigor. He ran on his, I can do the job. And on his being a strong guy.
Yeah, posing on
Joe
horses and shit. Yeah.
Is 80, and he's running on who he is.
Yeah.
He's just letting it out there and saying, this is what I do. You have to stop it. And he's proving that he is as vigorous at 80 as another president would be at 60. He's proving, he certainly looks at you and he gives you the Statler and Waldorf eyes, the little grumpy old guy eyes. And yeah, I mean, he looks like he's 80 years old. I'm not, sugarcoating the thing, but he is certainly proving that he's up to the job. And he's certainly proving that people start ripping on him because he's old. He's going to start to appeal to a sympathetic electorate who's going to go, yeah, but he's not really. He is, but not really. So I believe your point is very well stated, and I believe that this is part of the strategy, not just of the White House, but of the re-election campaign. That we are going to paint him, we are going to show him as a vigorous president, because to your other point, Steve. The president is going to rest. He's going to take it easy. It's going to get magnified in the media as, is he up for the job? I think the people, the president and the people around him are very aware of that perception, and they're already, what, 20 months out from the next election, 21?
Mhm.
They're
Mhm.
already out in front of it.
Yeah. Eddie doesn't have to run a primary because he's pretty much cleared the deck there. I think any remaining holdouts have pretty much said, "Nah, oh, we get it, dude. You know, go for it." So nobody's going to run against him. So he doesn't have to sweat the primary. So he can just cruise right to the general election where he's probably going to get some version of a shit show. And on the other side, I mean, you're either going to get Trump, which is I'm starting to wonder if Trump is the easier target or DeSantis, because DeSantis seems to find new ways to make himself radioactive to everybody but, Trump voters and the hardcore 30% ones at that. And I don't, the rest of the field, just, I won't even waste my time putting their names in my mouth. But you're right. I mean, and the whole thing started, to your point, Bill, with the State of the Union, where if the Republican plan was to make him look like a feeble old man, the fact that he was able to nimbly on his feet walk them right into a trap and let them fall right into it with the whole Social Security and Medicare thing, totally impromptu. Instead of him just sitting there looking like an old man, like, oh, these people are booing me and they're yelling, I don't know what to do. He took them on. He basically rolled up his sleeves and said, "Oh, you want some? Come get some." And he and and he handed it out. I mean, he broke it out and broke it out strong on them. So instead of him being some feeble old guy who couldn't handle a whole bunch of heckling and jeering, he whipped their behinds. So, he's even getting help from Republicans who can't seem to get out of their own damn way. So, yeah, good time to be Dark Brandon. Obviously, like you said, 20 months away, anything can happen. But as of right now, he's looking pretty darn good.
Yeah, and I don't really know how much should be said about the imbeciles on the other side. I mean,
Yeah.
again, I mean, today also from Abby Phillips' show, I mean, here was another man of letters, George Santos, talking about some bill to make the AR-15 the national gun. I mean, they're going to like the reddest of the red here. That's who they're catering to. It's insanity, it's absurdity, and I up this completely, I don't know how to say it, but this total moderation of the Biden presidency is just demonstrating great stability. It's certainly demonstrating success. It's demonstrating competence, and it's just, as we said 2 years ago, the adults are back in charge.
Yeah.
And you look at this Republican field, this potential Republican field. There's not a statesperson amongst them. They suck.
Yeah.
And I hate to, I mean, I don't hate to say it, I'm happy to say it, but 20 months out, I mean, again, a lot can happen in 600 days, but it's really starting to make a hard case against the reelection of the president.
Mm-hmm. It really is. I just, even obviously you and I both, proud Democrats, but even if I put on my totally objective political hat, um, I can't see anybody right now, at least of the field that we are hearing about, that could take this guy out. You either have Trump, you have people who worked for Trump, so they'd have to answer for all of his crap, including Nikki Haley, who is trying to, straddle both sides of the situation between MAGA world and, I don't know, normal world. I don't know if there is one such a world anymore. But she worked for the guy, so she's got to answer questions for him. Everybody else, Pence, Pompeo, they all have to answer questions for him, for the crap that he did that they stood by and watched happen and never said a word. And I'm starting to think more and more that DeSantis is not going to run, especially if old Dark Brandon keeps up the momentum, I could see him in over the summer saying, you know what, I'm young enough to wait. I'm not going to step out here and get my backside handed to me by the old man. I'll wait until 28 and see how I can make out against Harris or a Buttigieg or whoever else is going to come along to pick the mantle up from Biden.
All I know is he's not. The president is 80 now. Remember, he's what, a late November birthday.
Yep.
He will only be 81 at the time of the election.
Yep.
And there's an instant defuse to the age issue because, oh, well, he's only going to be 4 years older than Ronald Reagan was at the end of his term.
Yeah.
And people will not go yeah, but another 4 years, carry the one and all this stuff.
Right.
They're going to go, oh, okay. And like I said, let's not fool ourselves and think that he's not going to get out and do stuff.
Gosh.
First off, the Rose Garden strategy is valid. That has worked for presidents before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it worked for Reagan. It worked for Clinton. It's worked. It's worked for W. It worked to help get presidents a second term. It's effective. And let's not think for a second that Biden won't do that. That team has not thought of what's going to happen because right now that is the one. I mean, that is the one. That's the one piece of the armor that's missing. That's the one. That's the one scale. Is he's 80.
Yeah.
I think they've got to. I think they're going to have an app for that, right? If they don't already, and I kind of think they do.
Oh, I think they've so gamed this out. It's not funny. I think it's interesting. You see some of the changes at the White House. Kate Bedingfield, who helped run his campaign, has stepped down as communications director. Would not be surprised to see her heavily involved in the campaign. I think Jen O'Malley, I don't think she has stepped down yet, but word is she might, and part of hers would be to go. So they've already gamed this sucker out. They already know how they're going to get from here to there with this particular president and his particular style, which, oh, by the way, I think, yes, Rose Garden strategy will be there, but Biden's at his best with people doing that, what they call retail politics. So I don't think he's going to, run from the basement as the Republicans tried to accuse him of during COVID. I think he'll be out and about. I think you're going to see a guy, this is what he lives for. So again, people who are looking for him to look like some feeble old man stumbling and bumbling around and hoping people don't notice, you're not going to get that guy. You're going to get the same guy he's been.
Same map plus North Carolina and maybe Ohio. That's exactly what I see.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's North Carolina is the only thing I can see. Yeah, that's definitely going to change. Ohio might be a little bit of a stretch, although I believe Sherrod Brown's back on the ballot in 24.
That's right.
So I think that will be a great ally to have there. So yeah, I think it's set up very well for this to get done, both because of what the Biden team has done and what Biden himself is getting done, and the total ineptness of the other side. So looking good right now. Let's see what happens in 20. But I'm with you, Bill. Man, pretty well set.
Well, Steve, you wanted to bring up the third issue, which is of local import to we folks here in the land of milk and honey called Howard County, Maryland.
Yeah, and this one I hate to bring it up, but I almost felt like I had to because it's becoming a bit of a topic, and it has to do with our Howard County public library system, which, for my money is the best there is. I think that as a county, we've invested in having a high quality library system. I will say that Tanya Akins, who's the current head of the library system, I don't know her personally. I've encountered her once or twice, but by all accounts, she's done a very good job. But a situation recently came up that just to me left a bad taste on all sides. So to begin, Ms. Akins, and I've been to things at the library that are free of charge. Different organizations have, you know, different functions. They get a room in the library and have like a small meeting. I've been in the library for meetings of civic associations and others. So the fact that this happened is not that big of, it's not unusual, I'll say. But apparently there was going to be a function of the Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which is a Black Greek organization. For those of you who are not familiar with AKA, they're one of the oldest sororities, period, in the country. And there was going to be a function at the library, and it was going to be in the evening. And the plan apparently was to close the library at 2 o'clock. I believe it was the central branch of the library, or central library. They were going to close down at 2 to have this function. Anonymous tip goes into the county auditor's office. That's Craig Glendenning, somebody else who I've encountered a number of times, and I don't have anything but positive things to say about my interactions with Mr. Glendenning. But tip goes to Mr. Glendenning that this is going on, and it potentially could involve the use of library resources, staff and other things, as opposed to the library just saying, hey, if you want a room, here's a room, but it's up to you how this thing goes. So the auditor, who works for the county council, and their job is to, if they hear of something like that, to investigate. They go to investigate, and apparently, and again, there's a lot of different stories out there, but word is the library system was less than cooperative as far as providing interviews, information. They just felt like, y'all shouldn't even be talking to us right now because it's, we don't feel it's appropriate. So the county auditor's office wrote a report, and they, in the report, talked about the fact that they tried to investigate this thing, and the library system and Ms. Akins were not cooperative. Where it got a little messy was members of the auditor staff staked out the function, and in the report talked about the attire of the ladies of AKA, who, by the way, it's a Black sorority. So they're talking about these, African American women in these white dresses,
and they naturally wear their colors are, if I believe, like Kelly green and pink.
Right. So they're talking about what they're wearing and things of that nature, which was totally unnecessary. So, of course, because that was there, and obviously our council is our council, council member Opal Jones, of course, starts throwing, I don't know if he threw the word racism around, but certainly expressed his offense at descriptions of the attendees, and noted that, would you have done this if it were a function that involved white women? Councilman Youngman, of course, comes back and says, look, it's their job to audit, so they should audit. So it sounds like a lot of things went wrong here. I don't know why the library system was not more cooperative. I don't know why the auditor's office had to include descriptions of how the attendees of this function were dressed. The one thing that I believe, I don't know if it came from Ms. Akins or from AKA, they said that they paid for any security, they brought in, any refreshments. Literally the library system gave them the space. Of course, part of that controversy is they did close the library down early for this function by this one particular group. So I mention it because it just, again, speaks to some of the mess that we have here in our county, in the land, as you call it, of milk and honey. It also speaks to, some of what we're getting on the council. Now, I do know that Council Member Rigby spoke out in support of Council Member Jones's position. No word from Council Members Walsh or Young, at least nothing that I've read as far as any reaction to this. But to me, it felt like in the report, the auditor's office overstepped. I don't know. Somebody would have to explain to me why it's necessary to talk about how attendees were attired. They have not responded to any requests for comment from any of the local media. By the same token, I don't know why the library system didn't just simply say, hey guys, we'll tell you what you want to know. It was innocent enough on our part. It was nothing unusual, but they seemed to circle the wagons as soon as they were contacted. Maybe they were offended by the fact that the auditor's office, uh, they quote unquote staked out the event to see what evidence they could gather for their audit. But I don't know. It seems
Well,
like it's hopefully it's not a situation that gets blown out of proportion, that has people calling for folks' positions or jobs. But I don't know.
well, Steve, I'm back a little bit on what was it that the sorority wanted to know?
What do you mean the sorority? What do you mean, the auditor's office or the sorority?
Well, both, I guess. I mean, I guess what I'm a little staggered about
Mhm.
is, I mean, I've generally known. I mean, I've reserved many a room through the library's system before for numerous
Mhm.
organizations that I've been a member of.
Right.
I can never remember ever being quizzed about, what sorts of things are you going? I mean, I think the biggest thing I'd ever been asked was, are you going to have refreshments? And if so, what? Because
Right.
they didn't want to, they don't want to get stains on their carpeting. I guess I'm not really understanding here what was what was information that was then responded to by having people from the library staff come and stake out a community event. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never heard of that, and forget the events that I've gone to. I mean, the events I've attended run the gamut,
Mhm.
from the Hemlock Society to information about Rec and Parks summer camps.
Yeah. Well, I think, Bill, part of it, and this is the other piece of this, is where did this anonymous tip, quote unquote, come from? Because what started this whole thing was there was an anonymous tip that went into the auditor's office, basically saying that there was a function going on at the central library that was going to involve effectively a misappropriation of county funds. That instead of this being something that was the county gave an organization a room and got out of the way, that they were intimately involved. And there were even indications that, I believe, at one point they were talking about how Ms. Akins was a member of the sorority, so she kind of greased the wheels, and it turned out, I believe, she's not a member of the sorority. So I think what started it is, who was motivated to take this shot in the first place, and then why did the auditor's office, instead of, to a point I think where you were going, why not just call to Ms. Akins and say, hey, what's up? As opposed to doing a stakeout. I don't, that part I
Right.
also don't get. So I think that there were a lot of places where this went wrong. I think the auditor's office has some explaining to do as to what they did and why they did it and why they felt it was important to, again, stake out an event again. And I'm reading here online whilst we are speaking, and the last I'm seeing is there has yet to be no um there's let's see da, 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 yeah. So they did answer some questions, but I guess one thing that came out was the library said it was a public event followed by a reception, but there were invitations sent out, so it felt like it was by invitation only. So maybe they were, I don't know what, but it just found there's just a lot wrong here. And I believe at this point, you know, the last comment I have here is, it basically says, Glendenning declined to comment further, saying the report speaks for itself. I don't think that's good enough. I
Well,
think that
yeah.
he needs to say something.
Let me just say, and thank you for everything that you said about this. I only know about this a very little bit, and literally from when you mentioned it as a topic for today's podcast, have I bothered to look into it. And so your knowledge about this is much greater than mine. But this is a whole bunch of suck. And
Mhm.
I agree with you completely about the auditor's office. And I've spoken with Mr. Glendenning before. He seems like a good guy. They seem to
Yeah.
be running a good shop at the office. And I really am at a loss to understand why why this sequence of events would proceed in the manner in which it did. I believe that in the last few years in Howard County, we have certainly shown our pardon my French, our ass
Yep.
in terms of not being the fine, upstanding, exceptional place that it has pretended to be for many years. A lot of people in Howard County now act like spoiled punks, to be
Yeah.
quite honest. And, their racism is veiled or not so veiled. And who knows what the anonymous tip was? Who
Yeah.
knows what was going on? But I will tell you that those rooms are open to all sorts
Oh
of
yeah.
organizations, even political groups, any First Amendment protected group. So, could I potentially, I mean, the only thing that would make a whit of sense to me was that if there were some group that were, say, bumped out of a rental due to some sort of preferential treatment due to an organization that either Ms. Aiken or somebody else would be a member of.
Mhm.
However, that doesn't seem to be the case here. And so there would be no need for the auditor's office to come stake out an event if there was any perception of some sort of conflict of interest.
Right.
That would only seem to be the only way to question the library's thoughts in this manner. And also, my heavens, all the other public facilities in this county that get reserved by community groups, the schools,
Mhm.
pavilions at the parks, where, I mean, does the auditors, are the auditor's office going to go check those out too?
Yeah,
If
really.
there's some anonymous tip that there's some sort of foolishness happening at some event? And why is it the auditor's office? Why are we talking about, county resources as opposed to activity that might not be on the up and up? This whole thing smells weird, which
Mhm.
generally lends itself to the concept of something weird going on.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Now that this is on my radar, I'm going to take a looky at this as the months go by.
Yeah, like I said, I hope that the auditor, the county auditor, Mr. Glendenning, steps forward and says, "Look, here's the exact situation. Here's what was in the tip. Here's why we felt it was serious enough that we needed to investigate." Um, I think you can't just simply hide behind a report and say, "Well, here's the report. Read it and figure it out for yourselves." I think if you're going to take that step to make, quite frankly, accusations, you need to back it up. You need to
Right.
back it up. And I'd also say that, you know, with all due respect to especially Councilmember Jones, I think that turning turning this into a bigger issue by finding the nearest microphone and throwing around accusations about the auditors or their staff or the report. I don't think that does much good either. Um, I would say if the county auditor continues to not say anything, then all bets are off. But I think he should be given an opportunity to explain what to me seems like at best something that was just dumb and unnecessary. Uh, but at worst is in and of itself a misappropriation of county funds, conducting an investigation over something where was there really anything there to investigate?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, virtue signaling is a thing, and this can't go on from the other side either. So, I don't know. I'm really at the end of my comments about it, Steve. But
Yeah.
I have to say, I just think that we need to, you know, I, I'm just going to say all sides need to chill the hell out,
Yep.
and
Yep.
that's not exactly the word I'm thinking of, but this is um we must not have any other problems in Howard County. I'm just going to say what I mean. And maybe
Yeah.
that doesn't sound very sensitive or caring, but we must not have any other flipping problems in Howard County if this is what our council members are getting spun up about. And of course, in part, they're getting spun up because of constituent complaints.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, AKA was treated dirty based on everything that I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we are only a few years removed from a bunch of idiots having a rally down in Ellicott City and people selling Calvin Ballless
Yeah.
t-shirts.
Oh yeah.
So, I don't really want to go back into that mode of saying it's all about racism,
Mm-hmm.
but we also can't say that racism is not a thing here. And that also idiocy is not a thing here. It is. So, again, I'm not going to say any. I mean, I'm not fully versed in all of the players and in all of the things, and I don't really want to deal with a whole ton of speculation. But this just seems to be jacked,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure why the county's auditor's office is doing the things it's doing and why it's doing them in the way they're doing. It occurs to me that Mr. Glendenning, he's a nice guy, but it seems to me he's been in office quite a while. And it also seems to me that local government's very risk averse. But none of that makes it right. So I don't know. Rather than, like I keep saying, I'm not going to grasp at straws, but I'm grasping at straws. So let me just stop. And let's get to the last topic, which is a very serious, a very special announcement from the team at Forward Maryland. So I have people, Jason, myself, Katya for a few episodes, Steve, have brought you this fine podcast production with literally dozens of special guests for several years now. For myself, May marks 15 years of commentating on local, state, national, international, universal matters of importance from back in my days of writing the vaunted 53 Beers on Tap blog that ended in 2009 or 2018 through Forward Maryland, which has now gone on for about 5 years. 15 years is a lot. Steve and I talked a few weeks ago, and we decided that this May is going to be the sunset of this fine podcast production. It will return from time to time as a special event, and we are looking into ways to memorialize the library of episodes that we do have, which now number over 200. And and as I'm realizing, as I'm compiling my written blog posts, they capture a very important 11-year period in local history and state history, and it's first person witness testimony and opinion as to what's going on in real time. It's pretty cool. But after 15 years, it's time to say enough. It's time to move on and continue to see what opportunities and what stops I have to take on life's journey. And it's time to say, as Douglas Adams wrote, so long and thanks for all the fish. Steve, what do you have to add to that?
Wow. I don't know what I can add to that. That's so well put, Bill. And I appreciate the opportunity to be here for what was the tail end of one hell of a run for Forward Maryland. And as you said, it's not goodbye. It's so long for now. Bill and I and Jason are one text message away from saying, can you believe this crap happened? We need to hop online and talk about it. So I have no doubt that you will not, May will not be the last you hear of this broadcast, because stuff's always happening, and I'm sure something's going to happen that is so out there that we just can't help ourselves. But it is a good time. I know, Bill, for you, it's been a long ride for you between podcast, blog, etc. Um, you know, this really for me has been the end of a pretty long road, not necessarily in the area of reporting on the news, but obviously being a part of it, and certainly, Bill, to your point, the last 11 years, we could spend a podcast, and maybe we will, rattling off all the momentous things that have happened, since say 2010, and now national, state, local. I mean, truly historic stuff. So I'm looking forward to the book that will chronicle some of those events from the point of view of the 53. And yeah, it's been a great ride. I won't say any more now. We'll have plenty of time to have the thank yous and the valedictory speeches when we get to May. But for you folks out there watching or listening, you got us for a couple of more months. There's much to talk about, and we will be talking about it. So, hey, pitchers and catchers reported this week, and Grapefruit League and Cactus League have started up. So we're gonna have some fun.
3 more months is a lot of time to do a lot of things, and oh my God, we're completely untethered at this point. So look out. So at that, we are at the end of another fine podcast production. Steve, any last words?
No, sir. Again, it's baseball season. Plenty to talk about with the Birds, and plenty to talk about with all things Maryland. So again, another one in the bank. I think we're pushing. I think we should be closing in on 220 at this point, right? I know we're the 2 teens. But
I cannot remember the exact episode number this is. I apologize. Let me see. Let me check the YouTube channel right quick, because that's there. And our channel, we're at today is episode 215.
There we go, right in between. So hey, let's keep cranking them out, and watch out for those spy balloons.
99 go by. For Steve, I'm Bill. You have been watching and/or listening to another edition of Forward Maryland. Have a great week, everybody. Take care.